Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ninos Aaron, and it's my honour to lead this protest today, which has been organised by the Assyrian Council of Australia, New South Wales chapter. First, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and recognise the strength, resilience and capacity of Aboriginal people in this land. As we come together here today to raise our voice in protest to the treatment of Assyrian people in their ancestral homeland, may we also pay respect to the trials and tribulations embedded forever within the Aboriginal custodianship of country. Ladies and gentlemen, we find it fitting to begin this protest by honouring the millions of Assyrian martyrs, past and present, who have had their lives taken in genocides perpetrated against the Assyrian nation, together with all victims of terrorism. So I ask you to bow your heads and lift up your thoughts to those who have paid the ultimate price purely for their race and religion, as we observe 1 minute's silence. Thank you. May they rest in peace. I'd like to take this opportunity to formally welcome our guests that are present here today. Mr. Craig Kelly MP, Federal Member for Hughes, the Honourable David Clark MLC, Parliamentary Secretary for Justice, Mr. Milan Maximovich, representing the Honourable Fred Nile MLC, President of the Christian Democratic Party, Nella Hall, New South Wales candidate for the Senate, Christian Democratic Party. And of course, I welcome each and every one of you here today to Martin Place, a national Australian icon, to raise our voices and draw attention to the evil hostilities that are taking place against the Assyrian population in their ancestral homelands in Iraq and Syria, in particular in their traditional and historical homeland of the Nineveh Plains of northern Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, not long ago, in December 2014, in this very place was the centre of the world's attention when our great Australian nation suffered its first onshore terrorist attack. Not far from here are those windows where the terrified Antifa pressed that provocative flag into the glass, cameras zoomed into their faces, a gun at their back, and their future in the balance. It's here, right here, impossible not to remember. And tragically since then, this iconic place can no longer go back to merely being a thoroughfare of the busy. Now, this mall of grey pavers that splits the city has become a shrine in itself. No longer does Martin Place just pay homage to soldiers of World War I at the Anzac Cenotaph. No longer does it speak merely of money, power and the strut of success as the centre of business and finance crowned by the Reserve Bank of Australia. No, but since then it has become a place to gather as one, a place to pause and not just scurry through anymore, a place to stand as one against the evils of this world. When the world's evil and hostility threatens freedom and terrorises peace, to Martin Place we go. And so it is to Martin Place we have come to stand in solidarity with the Assyrian Christians of Iraq, and in particular today, the Assyrians of Nala, where evil and hostility has threatened their existence once again. We have come here to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. So thank you all for being here today, for making the decision to stand in solidarity with your Assyrian brethren around the world and calling for an end to the madness of the last 13 years of constant persecution, forced exodus, and illegal land appropriation of Assyrians and Assyrian land under the cover of civil war. These criminal acts are being performed with the clear knowledge of the Kurdish regional government, whose political agenda, it seems, is to force Assyrians out of their lands. But I say to the KRG and to the Kurdish people, you cry persecution. You cry persecution by Turkey, Iraq, Syria and Iran, yet yourselves persecute the peaceful Assyrians. Hypocrites. Instead of embracing and protecting the Assyrians, you want to eradicate them. History does not lie when it attests to those lands being Assyrian. The stones do not lie that bear the names of great Assyrian kings. You can destroy the rocks that bear this witness, or allow your allies ISIS to do the dirty work for you. We will dig up more, for that land has been Assyrian since time immemorial. Assyrian recorded history spans back over 7,000 years in that region, and wherever you dig, you will find Assyrian artifacts. For Assyrians, and because of Assyrian contribution, that land will forever be known as the cradle of civilization. Yet under your rule, you have turned it into the cradle of lies, atrocities, and enmity. You know very well the lands on which you live today do not belong to you. What a strange feeling it must be, knowing that you have invaded another's house, one who is willing to share it with you. However, it seems sharing is not something you do. Nevertheless, wherever you turn, and as much as you might like to lie to yourselves by turning a blind eye, that house itself bears witness to Assyrian ownership, with our family portraits engraved and etched in stone walls all around you, for which you yourselves serve to highlight, for you only serves to highlight your thuggery. Like wearing the jewelry of someone you have murdered, there must be a sense of guilt buried deep inside. Or maybe you are a sociopathic nation, adorning yourselves in the treasures of the children of Assyria and feeling entitled to them. Either way, they do not belong to you. And again I say, we are willing to share, but we are not willing to give you the whole portion of what originally belonged to us. Come, let us reason together. It's not too late. We are a people of peace. You have known that for a long time, taking advantage of our Christian faith and the precepts we so dearly follow. Again, it's not too late. Prove to the world that you too are a peaceful nation. Our agenda is very clear, and we have nothing to hide. The Nineveh Plains, a small room in our Father's house. Our demand is reasonable. Will you listen to reason? For if you don't, let me say, we will expose your thievery in every way. Tides turn and situations change, but one thing is for certain: Assyrians will not rest until their ancestral homeland is restored. Me, my children, my children's children will take up this cause until it comes to fruition, until justice is restored to the Assyrian people. The truth cannot be buried forever. For now, our message is this: hands off Nala, hands off our lands. We speak for our brothers and sisters in Assyria. We are here today to raise our voice, to demand justice that is long overdue, the justice that the KRG robs from Assyrians. I echo the words of one of your own, Mr. Farhat Enju. Your occupation won't last. No occupation lasts forever. Freedom always triumphs in the end. Though you try to drown the voices of our brothers and sisters in Assyria, we are free to shout, and shout we will. So are you ready to speak up for Assyria? Yes. I said, are you ready to speak up for Assyria? Yes.
We'll be back, we'll be stronger.
We'll be back, we'll be stronger.
Can't ignore us any longer.
Can't ignore us any longer.
We'll be back, we'll be stronger.
We'll be back, we'll be stronger.
Can't ignore us any longer.
Can't ignore us any longer.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Assyria, Assyria will never die.
Assyria, Assyria never die.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Assyria, Assyria will never die.
Assyria, Assyria never
Louder.
die.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Assyria, Assyria will never die.
Assyria, Assyria never die.
We'll be back, we'll be stronger.
We'll be back, we'll be stronger.
Can't ignore us any longer.
Can't ignore us any longer.
We'll be back, we'll be stronger.
We'll be back, we'll be stronger.
Can't ignore us any longer.
Can't ignore us any longer.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Assyria, Assyria will never die.
Assyria, Assyria never die.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Nala, Nala, don't you cry.
Assyria, Assyria will never die.
Assyria, Assyria never die.
Martin Luther King Jr. once said that human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step towards the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. I have rarely met someone with the same passion for the Assyrian cause, who has and continues to sacrifice his time to fight for the rights of Assyrians. For an official welcome by the Assyrian Council of Australia, I would like to call upon Mr. Herman Shaheen.
بسيمة بنومتي مغبة رمشو خنطاوة خادو ترى بجور تلقاتا اتخجي خيتا بجمايخ كلن لخا موضالة اتمرمخ قالا درق الظلم يد بقياتل ابني أمتن آطوراي أمتن خيتلا أمتن ليميتا وكمت اتن ظلم يا الملتن أخنا نجارق مرمخ قالا وهنا شطلاما رم قالوا بدا ظلميت إلى برايا الأرعت أوهاتا اتمجت إلى مكوبة جانو مكوبة ريشو قم دجمنت أمتا أطوريتا تشيبو قاتوخن تشيبو قكلوخن خيا أمتا أطوريتا همزمتي بتقويا من جيبة متوت شو تاسي أطوراي وجب أطوراي لخا أستراليا بلشانا إنجلسنايا. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodian of this land on which we meet and pay our respects to their elders, past and present. To all peace-loving people of Australia, on behalf of the Assyrian Council of Australia, I would like to welcome you all to this gathering. I express special appreciation to the honourable members of the Australian Federal and State Parliaments for their presence and solidarity with us today. We are very grateful to you all and are confident that you will raise the demands of the Assyrians in the federal and state parliaments, calling on the Australian government to support the rights of the indigenous Assyrian people in Iraq. The Australian Assyrian community is profoundly distressed by the ethnic and cultural genocide perpetrated against their kin in Iraq and Syria. The Kurds are intensifying their aggression to occupy the Assyrian territory by force and expatriate the Assyrian population. Most recently, a Kurd named Ibrahim Haji Yassin moved into Nala a few months ago and began seizing land in the village of Zuli. He began the illegal construction of 3 homes on Assyrian-owned land. According to credible sources, Mr. Yassin is employed by Rida Zebari, a close relative of Masoud Barazani, the president of the Kurdish regional government. Nala, ladies and gentlemen, has 8 Assyrian villages, and all the deeds in these villages are held by 117 Assyrians. The deeds, most of which were granted before 1970, have been recognized by the Iraqi Department of Agriculture and Iraqi courts. Similar violations have been carried out against other towns and villages located in the outskirts of the ancient Assyrian province of Nohandra, currently called Dohuk, north of Iraq. In the Assyrian villages of Korigavana, Blejani, and the defenseless residents in these villages were threatened and intimidated by the Kurds. Assyrians in many of these villages stopped sowing their rich agricultural lands, their only source of income. They were warned by the Kurds that if any attempts to produce a crop, their farms and houses would be burned to the ground. This threat was the fundamental reason why hundreds of Christian families left their homes in the villages and fled to neighboring countries. On the 13th of April 2016, this year, Kurdish security forces called Assyria imposed a blockade on 4 Assyrian villages in the Nala district in northern Iraq to prevent Assyrians from going to Erbil to participate in a demonstration. Cars belonging to the Kurdish government forces were parked across the roads loading out of Nala, blocking more than 100 Assyrians from leaving the villages of Upper and Lower Hezane, Zole, and Khalilan. Try as they may, the Kurdish authority could not stop the demonstration, and it was held the same day in front of the Kurdish parliament building in Erbil. The Assyrians in attendance were protesting the illegal seizure of Assyrian land and as well as the illegal construction of homes on their lands. My fellow Assyrians, we have gathered here today to stand in solidarity with the persecuted Christian Assyrians in Iraq and Syria, and to condemn in the strongest term possible the barbaric act carried out by the Kurdish regional government in northern Iraq against the indigenous Assyrians. The Kurds, under the watchful eye of the regional government, are systematically and unlawfully forcing Assyrians from their villages and homes in the occupied Assyrian lands in northern Iraq and in Al-Hasaka province in northeast Syria, declaring Assyrian lands as their own. These land grabs are achieved by acts of aggression and violence, exposing innocent civilians to imminent attacks, placing their lives in danger, and driving them out of their ancestral lands. We have gathered here to send out a strong and clear message to the world that we condemn the acts of violence anywhere, especially in Iraq and Syria. We must raise our voices and ask our politicians in the Australian Parliament to stand against atrocities facing our people in Iraq. We want the Australian government to intervene and ensure that the Assyrians of Iraq, who are facing systematic oppression and forced migration from their original homeland by the so-called Islamic State or Daesh and the Kurdish sequestrators, are given international protection. The international community has to end its silence on the Kurdish aggression. We call on all Assyrians worldwide to stand up for their brothers and sisters in the occupied Assyria. Do not let the Kurds frighten you any longer. Scream the name Assyria from top of your lungs. Scream the name Assyria from top of your lungs and let the world hear us again. Our blood has been shed. Our blood is still being shed on the great land of Assyria. Since 2003, hundreds of Assyrians has been killed in Iraq and over 1 million people fled Assyria. We are paying the price regardless of the fact whether or not we ask for our rights in Iraq. So yell and scream to the world and ask for your rights, my dear Assyrians.
Yes, we do.
Do not let them do what they have done to our parents and our ancestors for the past several hundred of years.
We will not.
Raise our flags and proclaim your Assyrian name to the world.
We will.
The blood of our brothers and sisters and our ancestors is screaming out of the soil of occupied Assyria. Rise up, rise up, rise up, because the time is today and tomorrow is too late. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. The time is today.
Yes.
We petition to the Australian government not to remain dormant on this issue, but to lay out a comprehensive strategy to assist the Assyrian nation's need for protection and safe living in their homelands.
God bless Australia.
As the governments of Iraq and Syria are failing to provide security, it becomes the duty of the international community, including Australia, to enable security and equality for Assyrians in their country of origin and their ancestral homeland. This duty is enshrined in the global political commitment commonly known as responsibility to protect. Further, we strongly urge Australia to lay out a comprehensive strategy assisting the Assyrian nation's need for establishment of a self-governed safe haven in the Assyrian heartland in northern Iraq, between the Upper Zab and the Tigris rivers. For the Assyrian Christian, Yazidis, and Mandeans, so that they can live in peace and security, where they can practice their religion, culture, and language in freedom and with human dignity, and to safeguard their ancient heritage, history, architecture, church, and sacred land. This strategy does not necessarily need to include Australian boots on ground, but could be accomplished by training and funding existing Assyrian Christian militia who can protect their lands themselves. A time has come when silence is betrayal. So we ask all to show solidarity with all persecuted Assyrian Christians in Iraq, and to send message to the Kurdish Authority to stop all acts of terrorism in the occupied Assyrian lands. God bless Assyria.
Amen.
God bless Australia and all who love justice and freedom forever. Awitum Basime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hermit Shaheen. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker made a truly remarkable address in support of a 2013 motion asking for an Assyrian autonomous region. He said, quote, "Today in Iraq there is an ethnic cleansing. Assyrians are being killed in a deliberate and systematic way. It is aimed to drive this ethnic minority from Iraq. We must use our voice to promote freedom, democracy, human rights and religious liberty, and to raise significantly these human rights concerns of the Christian Assyrians with the Iraqi government. There is no other alternative. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. Craig Kelly MP, Federal Member for Hughes.
I'd like to acknowledge my very good friends, people of the Assyrian community, Mr. David Clark, a state member of the Upper House, and Ms. and David. 2 days ago, we finished what was the 44th Parliament of Australia. 44 parliaments where we here in Australia could enjoy peace, could enjoy democracy, and could enjoy freedom. So, it is my obligation as an elected Member of Parliament to be here with you today to show solidarity with the Assyrian people currently suffering oppression in northern Iraq. There will be people today, somewhere in northern Iraq, in a Syrian village, fearful of oppression, fearful of threats, fearful of being run out of their ancestral homeland. But I hope that they will turn on the TV or the media, or they get a telephone call from their friends, and they will hear that we were here in Australia today, in Sydney and Martin Place, standing up and telling them we stand in solidarity with them and giving them hope for the future. I see a sign there that says, Assyrians, unashamedly Christian. That is what we want the Christian people of all Iraq to be able to practice their religion without fear of persecution. And we currently have an opportunity, a historic opportunity in world history. The Islamic State forces will be destroyed, they will be crushed, they'll be run out of Syria, and they'll be run out of Iraq. And when that happens, there's a window of opportunity for the world to come together to say that the Assyrian people deserve an independent homeland in the Nineveh Plains. And that is what we need to continue, to use our voice as parliamentarians, to use our voice as free citizens in a free country, to continue to promote and talk about. I am confident that in the months and years ahead, that day will be achieved. But only if we continue to stand up for the rights of the Assyrian Christians and stand up for what is right in this world. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, I'd just like to call upon Mr. Herman Shaheen to present to you a letter. If you could kindly present to the Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. Malcolm Turnbull.
On behalf of the Council, Assyrian Council. This is a letter on behalf of the Assyrian Council to the Prime Minister of Australia. We believe and we have trust that you will deliver this on behalf of the Assyrians gathered here today. And thank you.
Thank you, Hermes, and I give my personal assurances. I'll deliver this to the Prime Minister personally. I will raise these issues, and please continue with your voice to speak up for the Assyrian Christians.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ladies and gentlemen, you ready to raise your voice again? Okay, let's do it. Let them hear you, Nala.
Guys ready? Repeat after me. In our thousands, in our millions. We are all Assyrians. occupation is a crime. From north to west, you cross the line. Your occupation is a crime. From north to west, you cross the line. From north to west, you cross the line. Your occupation is a crime. From north to west, you cross the line. Your occupation is a crime. In our thousands, in our millions. We are all Assyrians. In our thousands, in our millions. We are all Assyrians. God bless you all. Thank you.
Kanalen, åtkomst. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker will be addressing this beautiful crowd in our most ancient and holy language, the Assyrian language. Please make him welcome, Mr. Gilgamesh Dawood.
شامان لقون من يومتي مخبه رابا بشمت لقاتن قاتد يوما دير وخلاقات مقروة در قلوثن وسروتن من دي تقوم للبناء أمن عشرايا جو عشر زبطنتا جو قربية أطرا مدري خادوت لقاتن وقاداني بخاينا هل دي يوما جو أطرا أواهاتا قد يضي داخلا إيتين بخايا وجو أطرا واتد قالوتا إنا بوشن ورقشن ورعشن إلى كل من داني بخاينا تاما وللقدي عندها ما شهاوخ صير بغداد جو أطرد العراق وسوريا ولبنان وفي شهيد جو مدن خمس عايا ومدري بطابر من ناخن عندها ما شهاويتون هتخا شركاني شوكباني جو هتخا تقلياثا المندد قوومي من زبطنا قردايا على راتت آوهاتن وقوة طيبوثة رفع إتلاني من هتامة البرلمان جو سلطان وتالخا جو نيو ساوث ويلز وجو استراليا جو نعيد خطواتي أخنواتي ميقريش طاما اللوخن ساقول أيوتن جو تقليتن إديوم درقل زبطنت الأرعاتن جو أثرت آشر إلى بسوت خدت جو درارا أمتنايا وصوبت نيشة الله تا شررت موديت كينوثا ضبوطا أمتنيتا قد مايت من كنشيا تي ولاية وخدت من كل شواوي لا أخاي إيوة وهل إديوم ألذت سوالت عما عشرايا مدخري شواوي لا أولدواوي سبب عما عشرايا لكل أولدواي وها خبرة لمدوق من قانون تي ولاية وزد قد برناشا أني تلين نطيري وخمية الخيروتة أمتن جو كل مشغلة التشقيتو الريختا الضبا شمتلا أخنن بخير جو دارة تسري وخا برناشا عشرايا يا شلق طيلة أخذ إن بخاير جو دارك ديلاي قم دينا يوثا وتخبت عم عشرايا وعم مشيخايا جو مدن خمسايا وها قومي بالفطا ألتا بولوتيقيتا كبتا أطرواتي قوري مارد تسقانا بولوتيقايا وقنو مايا خطواتي وأخنواتي بأمتا قليت لا لقيت كلن مطبر صوتي مرخوطنا ولطيقي جو أطرد عرق والمدرغة ممطينا البرناشا عرقايا من لا شينا وشلامة وكبينا وآروقة ولا بيشا مخبو من يقرأ لقيت شواوي وأطروات قالوثا وبعرفت أني أي كنواثا وخينة أما عشرايا وهي لدوخة قمايا إذا ما شاول صاني وش خيلاني وممرياني بقيات نبيه من قتلت وعرقت وسبت وسروتت إيتوتي قاتلقتت هيايوتي وهي كله دام خيارياته ومد قياثه هذا أترواتت هنزومنا بالديمقراطيوته وزدقت برناشا زي بنايي أنا أيوة وهل اليوم ألفت كل ضبية وبرمي وقرصان دعما شرايا بألفت بولطيقي شخطنت الطلال جو مدن 5 آية بريشاهيد عراق سوريا لبنان بيشون شليقي عقرب برناشا أصلايا مطولون بشوبه نخراية لم دينا يوثا ولكلون أبغدا آثوثا جو كل قرلة خيوثا هلا خا وبس فينا سقدلن المشميتة مش برانة وخوطانة نخراية ملبيلن اكلت خوبن جو أطرن مرخبنتلا قد خانوا خرايا زبطون للأطرن بقراية لشم وشماهد باعي هاون وبي مبارخته وبركاته قد أطرواتت بسناد لقاتي من أمتي مخبر والد كالف وهاقف وبصالي لوتا وملي لوتا ألفت بيشي وقت كمري وطريده أواهاتن قبارت أشعيتا وأخنن تولقلن شرشايوتا مير وقاتن هاويتن رابر عيشة الزيباني بخاينة خضروانة وخن وأخنن لا مسلم لمبالا هي بماري وقت وبقالا راما قد مت بشتاميرا بالديمقراطيوتا سلطانوتا قرديتا جو قربيد آشور إلى زيبانتا ولا مشتلنتا برساخل الشوطانيوتا وزبطون الاراتن بورخت متوتت قانون دعاوى قنطرت ورسخت هيوتا لا ايدعتا جو افرد اشر شلطانوتا قرديتا متوه لقد الشويلة قاشلطنتا الكل متواتي دبني امتن بورخات بطيلة ولا شريرة نالا صبنا بجابر حسكا قامشلي وشركة شوباني واني زبطون للارعاتن ببني امتن إلى برصوبة إيديعي وقربة وبخصمة يوتا عمري شانوتا باقودوتك مشتا زبطنتا الأطرن فرانسيس يوسف شابو ولازر ميخايل وأدور وبيرس وشركة برصوبة إيديعي قبني امتن بيشن قطيلة بيد قرداية وقاطولي هل دي يوما إن خيري جونو هدرا وأربعيلو وقالت لك هاليتون وهم شجارك صرخيتون أقاري زيباناي ولا شريري شلطانوتة قرداية أنا بقطالن العمن لا أقشد كانت متخريلا اللقونينوي متوتوا بتواتي وبنيات خضروانا وسرطنتا وتكبرتا بين باقودوتة قرداية عم داعش ين ايسس عم برمي وسلقا سبريشت قتلون بني عمن ين بني عمو دسنايا بس خينا مندك دقلي والديات تجانا هني ما بهاوغ بعراقة وايكا ما تخمودي بعودخ زبطنت امينيتلا من قب مشتعلاني كوشاني قرداي من هكاري هل ارمي واربل ونهضرا والد مرمخ قالن وامرخ للشخلابة ديموغرافايا البرناشة اصلايا وللبوليطيقة اموات مخيدة وكنوشياتي ولاية المخبلت الصوتة زبوتة امتن اخشب يا شيخ جلواي باطرواتها نخرايه خطواتي واخواتي هدامت برلمان وشركة مشتعلانة وجبت وشد آسد بني امتن صوتا ليلة برصوبيتا إلا إلى عميتا عمن رديبيلي دلاهج زدقي وما نتسراوي للياثي وهمزوميلي امتن عيوتا وشقشاتق وليهم زنبوت مثل نوثا وقيموثا دعما الكرسي سبيقي والقلة دبرينا من عما عاشورايا بماري رخوش لقاما مزلتيخن موترنتا قد جبانيخن برسوباي ما نتسار الأمته بليلة أمته بتقورال بيوما مخبي ابني أمتي والد متوخ الشخلابة عقرايا جو تخمنياتا صوبت كل قومتا بقيات لابن عمن عاشورايا وصار طنخ لدعتت ابني أمتن رعشت الشقويا الاسي خيلاني اخ عاشورايا مشيخاي سبب مشيخة ميرلي لي زدعي كل خيوم جو خيوتوخ ريشايد اخنن بخيوخ جو اطرواتت قالوتا للدورا شعم خوطاني كوشاني مخرواني زيباني تشعيتا وهيا يوتا عاشوريتا جو اطرد عاشور لها من قردايا وبنت اجداوة اخ همنتا بابا ساوى لا لم طلبت شم عاشورايا لا الشخلة بادي مغرفايا لا البايت لا السلطانة قردايا ولا المخبلتك نشاتي ولاية لا وقت بسقط أربي قد بشخ مرخقة من ديوة ونطير بيد كلبي وبيتو مسيمي وخير انت شوخ ورمامة زادد عمن
Khayyat Myuqra Dawud. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like now to call upon a friend of the Assyrian people, a man of faith, a passionate speaker, and a strong supporter of the Assyrian cause. This man voted in favour for the establishment of an Assyrian autonomous region. Please make him welcome, the Parliamentary Secretary for Justice, Mr. David Clark, MLC.
Well, thank you very much, and I feel honoured to be here, to be able to join you and to express solidarity with you at this grave time in the history of the Assyrian people as they face extinction, as they face extermination, as they face genocide in Iraq and in Syria at the hands of ISIS and other Islamists. But you who are here, hundreds of you, you represent tens and tens of thousands of other Assyrians throughout Australia and other Middle Eastern Christians who are similarly under assault and under attack from the Islamists, not only in the Middle East but throughout the world, here in Australia as well. And I'm here in my capacity as a Vice Chairman of the New South Wales Parliamentary Friends of the Assyrians, because it's the Assyrians who have informed me and Craig and other members of Parliament what is really going on there in Iraq and in Syria. And I'm here also in my capacity as Parliamentary Secretary for Justice, because I believe in justice for the Assyrian people, and I believe that justice should be meted out to those murderers and thugs who are committing those crimes at this very time. And justice, dear friends, will come to those people, including those Australians, those who call themselves Australians, who went over there and who have betrayed their country and are now involved in killing Assyrians and others in Iraq and Syria at this time. They will be brought to justice. That's why I believe, as I say, I'm Parliamentary Secretary for Justice, and I believe that those people should be brought to justice. I'm here also as a Christian, and I realise that Christianity is under attack. And when I heard that gentleman before me speaking in basically a derivation of the language that our blessed Lord spoke when he was on this earth, I realise a language that you share with our blessed Lord. And our blessed Lord must be grieving and weeping in heaven when he sees what is happening in the Middle East when he sees Christians and others being killed and murdered in the way that they are. But the ISIS people, they can point their finger to heaven. They can point their finger to heaven as they do, but their inspiration doesn't come from heaven, it comes from hell. And at the end of the day, at the end of our day, our blessed Lord is the Prince of Peace, but he's also the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and at the end of the day he will prevail against all of these murderers. And I believe that the Assyrian nation will survive in the days and years and centuries ahead. About that I have not a shadow of a living doubt. Now I'm also here as a Member of Parliament, like Craig. I'm here as a Member of Parliament who believes in democracy. And at the end of the day, democracy will come to the Assyrian people. They will get a homeland of their own. And the idea of a caliphate will never come permanently to the Middle East. And it certainly will never come in this great land of Australia as well. Now, ISIS brag about what they're doing. They brag about their crimes. They advertise them on the YouTube. They have expelled Assyrians from their ancestral lands. They burn down your houses. They burn down your churches. They destroy your monuments of thousands of years old. These people are wicked beyond belief. They crucify Assyrians. They behead Assyrians. They burn to death Assyrians. They sell Assyrian women and others into slavery. These people are the epitome of the devil himself. But at the end of the day, I believe that the Assyrian people will not be destroyed. At the end of the day, I believe that Christianity will survive in this land where it was founded 2,000 years ago. Now the whole world knows that what is being perpetrated against the Assyrian people and others is genocide. There is no other word for it. The Australian government only a few days officially declared that what was happening to the Assyrians is genocide, and the whole world knows that. The European Parliament has declared officially that it is genocide against the Assyrian people. The US State Department acknowledges officially that it is genocide. The whole world knows that genocide is being perpetrated. And just as we thought things couldn't get worse, they have got worse. Because in those areas which are supposed to be secure in the Kurdish regional homeland, when we thought that was a safe haven for Assyrians and other Christians, we find that they are being persecuted even in that Kurdistan homeland. What a crime against humanity that is. They're removed from their lands, their homes are taken, they're persecuted, discriminated against. Many Assyrians have lost their lives. Now the Kurdish regional government says, oh, we don't know about this, we don't support this sort of stuff. But the truth is, they are turning a blind eye to it. The truth is, there are Kurdish police who have been involved in protecting the perpetrators against the Assyrian people. So the West gives money to the Kurdish Authority. It gives arms and weapons to fight ISIS. And they have fought ISIS, and we salute them and we praise them for that. But at the same time, they're not getting the money and they're not getting the guns to turn those guns on the Assyrians and other Christians in the Middle East. So those countries in the West who have given money and weapons to the Kurds, they should bring these people into line. They should say, behave yourselves. The Assyrians and the Kurds, you claim, are on the same side together. What the West should be doing also, apart from supporting the Kurds, is to give weapons to the Assyrians so they can protect themselves. Guns for the Kurds, guns for the Assyrians to protect themselves. Now, worldwide, there is an Islamist, a terrorist network and it's arrived down here in Australia. Would we ever have expected that here we are at the bottom of the South Pacific, the next stop south is Antarctica, the only people there are seals, and yet we face it on a daily threat here. Open up the newspapers on any day and you'll find that Islamists here in Australia are at work doing their dirty work. Only a couple of 100 metres behind you, we saw innocent Australians murdered by a man who declared allegiance to ISIS. Over at Parramatta, only a year or so ago, we saw a young person working for the police coming out of a police station, shot to dead by a man who claimed allegiance to ISIS. Only a year or so ago, a man was arrested for plotting to kidnap in this very hallowed place here near the cenotaph a passerby. It could have been my daughter as she went daily through this place, and to publicly behead them here and then to show it on YouTube. Only on Anzac Day, a few days ago, a man was apprehended for planning a terrorist murder on this hallowed day of Anzac. How low can these people go, these vermin who are lower than the dust on our shoes? So, we remember 2 years ago when Islamist thugs went through the streets of this CBD on a Saturday morning when families were out there with their children doing their shopping and sightseeing and eating in restaurants, and they just caused havoc in this place. They held up signs that said, "Those who disagree with us should be beheaded." They said that here in Australia. They physically attacked our police. They overturned police vehicles. We need to come down strongly on these people wherever we find them. Whether they are recruiting for ISIS, they should be brought to justice. Whether they are raising money for ISIS, they should be brought to justice. Those who are putting propaganda out there, likewise with them. And as for so-called religious leaders who get up and try to excuse the crimes that these Islamists are committing overseas with their terrorism, we have only the absolute disgust and contempt for them. They should be repudiated by the entire community. They should be pushed aside. They should be ignored. And if they breach the law, they also should be brought to justice as well. We're here also because we stand behind our brave young military men who are over there as advisors in the fight against ISIS, and who are there in the Royal Australian Air Force bombing to kingdom come these Islamists. We praise them and we honour them, and we ask that God protect them as they make the Middle East safe for all Christians, all people, against these murderers who are at large there. I congratulate Tony Abbott when he declared that 12,000 refugees from the Middle East would be brought to Australia, and declaring that they be the most vulnerable, the most at risk, obviously referring to Christians, obviously referring to Assyrians and Mandaeans and Yazidis and other minority groups. And we praise him and we exalt him for doing that. But the problem is, as they search for the Christians and those from small minorities in the refugee camps in the Middle East and elsewhere, they should realise that the Christians have been forced out of those camps already by Islamists and Salafists and others who are there even in these camps. So we encourage the government to continue with haste to bring those genuine refugees here, and clearly at the top of the list, because they're the most vulnerable, are the Assyrians and other Christians in the Middle East. So friends, we just keep fighting. The day will come when these people are brought to justice. The day will come when ISIS will be defeated. There will be no caliphate in Iraq and Syria. There will be no caliphate here in Australia. we just keep on going. We believe in the protection of God, and Almighty God will not let us down. We believe in justice, and justice will prevail. We believe that the Assyrian nation will survive. It has survived for 7,000 years, and it will survive in the years and the days ahead. So help us, God. God bless the Assyrian people. No more Assyrian blood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest Assyrian achievements of the 4th century was the founding of the first university in the world. The School of Nisibis had 3 departments, theology, philosophy and medicine, and it became a magnet and a centre of intellectual development in the Middle East. The statutes of the School of Nisibis, which have been preserved, later became the model upon which the first universities of Europe were based. When Arabs and Islam swept through the Middle East in 630 AD, they encountered 600 years of Assyrian Christian civilization with a rich heritage, a highly developed culture, and advanced learning institutions. It is this civilization which became the foundation of the Arab civilization. However, today, our Assyrian kids are being stripped of their basic human rights, one of which is a basic education. It's my honour to introduce our next speaker, who is cut from the same cloth of the ancient teachers of Edessa. He is currently a lecturer at the School of Historical and Philosophical Studies, University of Melbourne, specialising in Syriac studies. He is additionally affiliated with the Syriac Language Research Centre at the University of Divinity. Please make him feel welcome, our very own Dr. Nicholas Algino.
Thank you, Ninos. Brothers and sisters, dear friends, we are gathered here today to protest Kurdish oppression and marginalization of indigenous Assyrians in areas in Iraq and Syria which they control. While it is true that Assyrians are not being killed in large numbers, the indifference of Kurdish political parties and the alienation and marginalization of Assyrians has undercurrents that are truly genocidal. Since this resembles a coordinated plan of different actions aiming at the destruction of the essential foundations of Assyrian life in their homeland, with an aim that can only be their annihilation as a group. These actions can be found in the fields of politics, by Assyrians being denied their institutions of self-government and the Kurdish political parties imposing their own pattern of administration, and through colonization. It can be found in the social field, with Assyrian social cohesion disrupted and the killing or removing of elements such as the intelligentsia, which provide spiritual and national leadership. A prime example being the martyr Francis Shabo, who stood up for Assyrian land rights in northern Iraq. In the cultural field, Assyrian cultural institutions and activities are severely limited and controlled by the Kurdistan Regional Government, or KRG. Independent Assyrian cultural institutions are not officially registered, and Assyrian curriculum schools are both not encouraged and underfunded by the government. In Syria, the Kurdish Democratic Union Party, or PYD, administration has forced all schools with even one Kurdish student to teach the first 3 years of primary education in Kurdish, as well as a Kurdish history class. In the economic field, it is almost impossible for Assyrians to find employment if they do not join the Kurdistan Democratic Party. Many agricultural lands have also been illegally transferred to Kurds, and land disputes between Assyrians and Kurds regarding Kurdish land grabs remain unresolved. In Syria, the PYD administration has confiscated the homes and properties of Assyrians who have temporarily left the conflict zone, as well as public buildings such as schools belonging to Assyrian institutions. In the biological field, the KRG has employed a policy of depopulation through land seizures and demographic change, and by promoting procreation of Kurds in their occupied areas. Economic marginalization and the disadvantagement of Assyrians in northern Iraq, specifically the Iraqi Kurdistan region, has also led to them immigrating and leaving and not procreating as much as the Kurds. In the religious field, Kurdish political parties interfere with the affairs of Assyrian churches, which in many cases provide not only spiritual but also national leadership. The KRG employs a policy of patronage and intimidation with the Assyrian churches, with some bishops even joining the ranks of Kurdish political parties. These churches have also been interfered with through the promotion of separatist, bogus, Chaldean or Syriac identities based on sectarianism, employing a divide and rule strategy amongst communities in their areas of control. It can finally be found in the field of morality by attempts to create an atmosphere of moral debasement through promoting the excessive consumption of alcohol. In 2011, a number of Assyrian businesses in the Iraqi Kurdistan region, mostly liquor stores, were burnt down by mobs of angry Muslims. The Assyrian town of Ankawa in that region has recently become a hotspot since it has come to be associated with immoral businesses such as liquor stores, massage parlors, bars, and the like, all sanctioned by the government but not allowed to be run in other areas. Muslim Kurds that are religious thus refuse to enter Ankawa due to this association and have demonized its Assyrian inhabitants. According to Raphael Lemkin, and Raphael Lemkin was the man who created the word genocide. He coined the term genocide in 1943. He said, genocide has two phases. One, destruction of the national pattern of the oppressed group. The other, the imposition of the national pattern of the oppressor. This imposition, in turn, may be made upon the oppressed population which is allowed to remain, or upon the territory alone after removal of the population and the colonization of the area by the oppressor's own nationals. The policies of the KRG in Iraq and the PYD in Syria show a clear attempt to destroy the national pattern of the Assyrians and the imposition of their own Kurdish national pattern upon them. The KRG especially turns a blind eye to the oppression and marginalization of indigenous Assyrians, citing its financial crisis and the war against ISIS as excuses, appealing to the popular beliefs and intolerance of the Kurdish majority population through religious extremism or nationalist fervor. Furthermore, the KRG's actions are deceitfully misrepresented in a way that they are propagandized as the saviors and protectors of the Christians, when they're really not. And the PYD are also being perceived as pluralistic and democratic, when they're not. Today, we are not just here to protest the confiscation of Assyrian land in the district of Nala by Kurds, and the refusal of the KRG to do something about it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. We are here to demand that the Assyrians be recognized as an ethnicity, not as a religion, not as Christians. They're a nation that is an integral component of Iraq and Syria's society, and they should not be treated as second-class citizens by their more powerful or more numerous neighbors. Of course, Assyrians are not against anyone. Assyrians are not against Kurds. Assyrians are not against Arabs. Assyrians are not against Muslims. Assyrians just want to live in peace and live together with the Kurds and their other neighbors. But they also want empowerment through justice, equal citizenship rights, mutual respect, and the ability to maintain and preserve their identity and heritage with dignity and integrity, as do all people. The Assyrians are native to that region, and since it is their home, they really have nowhere else to go. They should be treated as equal partners on the ground and be allowed the ability to practice their own rights to self-determination, not just practice their religion. They need self-determination and control of their own destiny and their own affairs. Without this, Assyrians will continue to immigrate and leave the Middle East and assimilate into the various cultures of their host countries. And this disappearance of one of humankind's most ancient languages and cultures would be a severe loss for the entire world community. Thank you all for coming here this morning and for standing with the Assyrian people. Thank you for standing with Assyria. God bless you all.
Thank you, Doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, we're nearly done towards the end of our speakers before we set out to march and raise our voices. But for a change in pace, we'll be performing for you a theatrical piece based on a poem by the father of Assyrian nationalism, Naum Fab. Please make welcome the Young Assyrian of the Year, Mr. Ramos Jacob and co.
Did our hearts become stone? Did our hearts become of iron? No. We must speak out. We must demand. We must protest. And we must always speak out for our rights. We must always speak out for our rights. And may these words reign. Ladies and gentlemen, speak and repeat after us.
The time has come, a fact's a fact.
Time has come, a fact's the fact.
It belongs to them, so give it back.
Belongs to them, so give it back.
The time has come, a fact's a fact.
The time has come, a fact's a fact.
It belongs to them, so give it back.
It belongs to them, so give it back.
Ladies and gentlemen, our youth are our future. May our youth always speak out.
The time has come, a fact's a fact.
The time has come, a fact's a fact.
It belongs to them, so give it back.
Belongs to them, so give it back.
One more time.
The time has come, a fact's a fact.
The time has come, a fact's a fact.
It belongs to them, so give it back.
Belongs to them, so give it back.
God bless every one of you. Thank you. Khayatu.
Khayatu. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to move forward. I'd like to call upon a good friend of ours, whom you'll be seeing more of, Mr. Milan Maximovich. He's the Christian Democratic Party candidate for McMahon, and today he is representing the Honourable Reverend Fred Nile, MLC. Please make him welcome.
Shalom Aleichem. Dear brothers and sisters, it's a real honor and blessing to be today with you. Christian Democratic Party, with the leadership of Reverend Fred Nile, has been standing for all Christians and their values and fighting their battles for over 35 years. Today we are standing together with you to say no to persecution of Christians of the hands of ISIS, no to the stealing of Assyrian land at the hands of Kurds, no to the world being silent about these crimes. It is time that Australia put an end to a genocide of Assyrians and other minorities in Iraq. It is time for the world to put the end of occupation of Assyrian land and to give it back to its rightful owners. We are asking for safe haven for Assyrians. Brothers and sisters, I know what it feels like to lose a home. I know how it feels to lose your land. I know how it feels to lose your country. I know how it feels to live like a refugee when someone else occupies your home. I know how much it hurts to have your family in your homeland suffering from persecution and abuse just because of their race or faith. We hear each day and see with our own eyes the pain of our brothers and sisters. But I also know how to trust God in all these difficult times. Dear brothers and sisters, if we are to stop history repeating itself, we need to unite and raise up our voices. The genocide that my Assyrian brothers and sisters suffered in 1915 is happening again. Back then, no one supported us while we have suffered. No one wanted to help us. No one even cared to listen to us, and millions of people were killed. But now we live in this free country of Australia, and our battle begins by supporting each other, by supporting everyone's rights to live. Now it's our chance to make our voices heard. I urge you to not give up, but stand together to protect your right to have a homeland. We cannot be silent anymore to the suffering and cry of our children and our brothers and sisters. Unite and let the whole world hear our voices. Join us in our fight. Together we can win our homeland back. Haya umta atoreta!
Thank you, Mr. Maximovich. Ladies and gentlemen, we have coming to our final speakers for today. South African anti-apartheid revolutionary and politician Nelson Mandela once said, "A good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination." It's my honour today to say that I work and know such a person who is blessed with both. Please welcome to the stage our good friend, Miss Ravina Judo.
Dear brethren, free Assyrians. The Assyrians have been suffering under the persecution of Middle East regimes, whether in Iraq or Syria, for no fault of their own, but with the simple reason of being the indigenous people of the land. The Assyrian nation since 1800 AD to present time has been deprived of freedom. They have been experiencing genocides which many generations have been declined, have been forced to exodus, migrating to foreign lands by force, where hundreds of thousands of people of all ages died due to hunger, lack of fresh water, climate exposure, and the overwhelming distance which they were forced to walk. And for those that did make it, they were refused entry at the borders, and again the Assyrian population in decline by hundreds of thousands. Throughout the cycle of life, the Assyrians are facing trauma, destruction, and disturbing in their own homeland in daily life. They are deprived from their language teaching, from religious and culture practices. Like any other nationality, Assyrians need to keep their culture, religious, and language. Today, Kurds' aggression towards Assyrians is transparent to the world. Kurds are confiscating the lands that belong to the Assyrians under the influence of Kurds' authority. These thieves are strengthened and empowered to build on someone else's land. This is to say that Assyrians are not treated equal to the Kurds. It seems the Kurdistan law is only one-sided, and that is to Kurds' benefit. In the land of Nala, Hassal, Jud, and many other villages that are fully occupied and owned by the Assyrians, houses are being built by Kurds without the knowledge of the proprietor, and the justice is not being served. Today, we beseech with the international leaders to intervene with the current situation in Iraq and Syria, and to acknowledge the necessity and urgent action to be taken in resolving the aggression towards the Assyrians, to aid in assisting the people of Assyria in Iraq and Syria by providing a safe haven in Nineveh Plains. This great nation needs to be set free like any other nation to live in peace and harmony in a land where they can gather together and call it home. Long live Assyria. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trudeau. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to our last speaker, and it's fitting that she'll be addressing the crowd in the Assyrian language. Please make her feel very welcome, Ms. Sana Giwargis.
ميبرا هدام البرلمان أخنواتي خطواتي مريزان التقليتا كن شبريخا شلامة أشورايا اديو كلان جميع وغاوداها تقليتا قاسنتت أخنواتن أشورايا دبخاينا قاو أرعد أشور مزبطنتا بيد قردايا تشعيتا مغزوية لرابا بصبيوتا اخنن اشوراية بشلان قطيلة رديبة مرقة من ارعاتا ومتواتا بيد خيلوات التركاية عثماناية وهكمة عراق وبداي موتا قردايا ويلي هوسيبها بوش خروبا وبوش قشيا قاو ايدات بعدواوان اهق لي مشنيزة شم مشنيزة بشلي متود لها قوتا قو أطرد آشور أهق مشنيزة بشلي بنية بأرخة شقرة ونخلة وزيبانوتا وقطلة وبس هادي لي ألداها تشعيتا كمتها دمنتا مار بنيامن شمعون سهد الدار الداور وبس هادي لسميلي وبس هادي لصورية ويوسف ويوبرت ويوخنا وبس هادي لخابر ونينوي آني بشلون مسوبية بإيدات الداعش وبس هادي لنالا وهزارجور وصبنا وبرور وكل متواتي ومديناتي قو آشور مزبطنتا شميمون يا قرداية بوسامة هجلي هاوي لاخل قاو أطرا داشور كماد آشورايا بخاينا وبتهاوخ كتوى قوينوخن وبتهاوخ روضانا خد أقلاتوخن سبب أخنن الحقوتة بكلاية وخ والشرارة بكلاية وخ قال راما بتمقوخخ من سيدني أرعت توتاوتا قد ما قالا كأموات مخيدة قال راما بتأمرخ وبتمقوخخ ليت بياشا زدقي ليت بياشا خيروتا قابني أمتي أشورة تقاو أرعد آشور بني أمتي انكبرتا كد أخنن إديو ديري وخلخا والد تخرخ خبرت كتاوة قديشة آشور قطية إيدد آله هيلي وقطية إيدد آلها هجلي شمطة قطية إيدد آلها هجلي شمطة بسيم رابط
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the formal part of the protest with the speeches. Could we thank all the speakers once again with a loud round of applause?
We'll liberate! 1, 2, 3, 4! 1, 2, 3, 4! Then grabbing! No more! Then grabbing! No more! 5, 6, 7, 8! 5, 6, 7, 8! Our land will liberate! Our land will liberate! In our thousands! All Assyrians! All Assyrians! We are all! We are all! All Assyrians! All Assyrians! aggression!
Stop Kurdish aggression!
Give us our protection!
Give us our protection!
In our thousands!
In our thousands!
In our millions!
In our millions!
We are all Assyrians!
All Assyrians!
In our thousands!
In our thousands!
In our millions!
In our millions!
We are all
Assyrians!
All Assyrians! Nala, Nala, don't you cry!
Nala, Nala, don't you cry!
Assyria will never die!
Assyria will never die!
Stop Kurdish aggression!
Stop Kurdish aggression!
Give us our protection!
Give us our protection!
Give us our protection!
Give us our protection!
In our thousands!
In our thousands!
In our millions!
In our millions!
We are all Assyrians!
All Assyrians!
In our thousands!
In our thousands!
In our millions!
In our millions!
We are all Assyrians!
All Assyrians!
Mighty Assyrians!
All Assyrians!
God bless Australia!
God bless Australia!
Nala, Nala, don't you cry!
Nala, Nala, don't you cry!
Assyria will never die!
Assyria will never die!
Nala, Nala, don't you cry!
Nala, Nala, don't you cry!
Assyria will never die!
Assyria will never die!
Stop the Assyrian genocide!
Stop the Assyrian genocide!
Australia, hear us! God bless Assyria!
God bless Assyria!
God bless Australia!
God bless Australia!
Stop the genocide!
Stop the genocide!
Stop the genocide!
Stop the genocide!
Demand for a safe haven!
Demand for a safe haven!
Demand for a safe haven!
Demand for a safe haven! Stay away from Assyria! Stay away from Assyria! Stay away from Assyria! Stay away from Assyria!
Stay away from Assyria!
Preoccupied Assyria!
Australia! God bless Australia! End the Assyrian genocide! End the Assyrian genocide! End the Assyrian genocide! End the Assyrian genocide! Establish an Assyrian safe haven! Establish a Assyrian safe haven! Establish a safe haven!
Establish a safe haven!
End the Assyrian genocide!
End the Assyrian genocide!
Stop the genocide!
Stop the genocide!
Stop the genocide!
Stop the genocide!
Nala, Nala, don't you cry! Nala, Nala, don't you cry! Assyria, Assyria will never die! 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 In our thousands! In our thousands! In our millions! In our millions! We are all Assyrians! All Assyrians! In our thousands! In our thousands! In our millions! In our millions! We are all Assyrians! 1, 2, 3, 4! 1, 2, 3, 4! Then grabbing no more!
God bless Assyrians! God bless Australia! God bless Australia! God bless Assyrians! God bless Assyrians! God bless Australia!
God bless Australia!
We love Australia!
We love Australia!
We love Assyria!
We love Assyria!
We love Australia!
We love Australia!
We love Assyria!
We love Assyria!
God bless Australia!
God bless Australia!
God bless Australia!
God bless Australia!
God bless Assyria!
God bless Assyria!
God bless Assyria!
Occupation!
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 It's a crime!
It's a crime!
It's a crime!
It's a crime!
Time has come!
Time is come!
Facts are fact!
Facts are fact!
It belongs to them!
Belongs to them!
So give it back!
So give it back!
Nala, Nala, don't you cry!
Nala, Nala, don't you cry!
Assyria, Assyria will never die!
Assyria, Assyria never die!
No Kurdish aggression!
Stop Kurdish aggression!
Give us our protection!
Give us our protection!
Stop Kurdish aggression!
Stop Kurdish aggression!
Give us our protection!
Give us our protection!
God bless democracy!
God bless democracy!
هنا أبقى لما أصدر منطقة على سبب لا أبقى ليلتنا إدارة
Occupation is a crime!
Occupation is a crime!
Not the West, you cross the line!
Not to West, you cross the line!
Occupation is a crime!
Occupation is a crime!
In our thousands, in our millions!
In our thousands, in our millions!
We are all Assyrians!
We are all Assyrians!
In our thousands, in our millions!
In our thousands, in our millions!
We are all Assyrians!
We are